It's another Sunday morning and another batch of green pepper from our Riverside 1 DEF field is being harvested. It's then graded and packed, weighed, and then loaded onto the light truck for transport to Lusaka, to the market and to the other customers. But getting harvests like that out of this particular crop is something that only a few weeks ago it seemed impossible. We had suffered an extreme weather event that came and took a terrible, terrible toll on this crop and put the future of it in jeopardy. On this video, we're going to look at what happened and also look at some of the things that our team had to do in order to turn things around to the stage where we were back to getting bumper harvests like this. But I've been on this farming journey now long enough to know that it is always full of ups and downs, and to know that you always have to factor in how the weather will come along and do its thing. We might be smiling now and saying that we managed to save this crop, but we also know that we only have a few days left, maybe if we're lucky, a few more weeks growing and harvesting from this crop before another extreme weather event comes along and means that we have to say goodbye to this crop forever. And we've got to get our minds right and start getting ready for when that day comes. Stay with us. Greetings from the farm. I hope you're well. It is so good to have you back with us again here on the Mondo Farms channel. My name is Shisha Folotia. I run a company called Mondo Farms Limited that produces vegetables and other crops on 2 farms on the outskirts of Chongwe. So we are about 40 plus kilometers east of Lusaka, the capital city of Zambia. We've been growing vegetables on this field, which is called Riverside 1, since 2020. And over the years, we've had a lot of things established here. We've had things like eggplant, cucumber, carrots, and of course, some maize during some of the rainy season. We currently have 2 sets of crops here on Riverside 1. Up on top on blocks A, B, and C, we've got this carrot crop. And on the lower portion, which is blocks D, E, and F, we've got this green pepper crop that was established back in July. We actually had a very brief introduction to this crop when we featured it as part of the video that we were doing about the green pepper crop on Dubai 1. You remember the one that had all those problems with the frost? And then we showed this particular crop here on Riverside 1 DEF being transplanted as a successor to that one. Transplanting is a key part of what we call the establishment phase. Now, we've covered this in quite some details in some of our other videos on the channel. In fact, one of the interesting things about having been making these videos since 2021 is that one wonders as one is going along how much repetition to do. On the one hand, there are people who've watched each and every one of our videos. And on the other hand, there's always someone coming to the channel, and this is the very first video that they've seen here at Mondo Farms. So let's summarize it. Let's summarize the establishment phase. That is where we get the crop established in the ground. And there's a couple of phases that we do, stages, should I say, that we do in order to do that. It always starts with the planning. We need to know when are we growing a certain crop and which field are we growing a certain crop, how are we going to water it, how are we going to look after it, and all of that. So normally, Tyson, our operations manager, and myself and some of the other members of the team will get together and discuss when are we doing what, when, and how.
So ino wiki tize nchito zetili nazo monga za mafaya gadi imona mumfuno akili na reservoir yanu muikili ni letu then nishi once bashimonoka kuno na beve ba timu ye iri kuno yawe ne chiwala mafaro bakasiriza then bangankaliko free at least.
And after planning, of course, comes execution. The first thing we have to do is prepare the field. And that involves mostly preparing the beds. Our bed spacing that we use for most of our fruiting vegetable crops has come along over the years. So we tried different spacings for different crops, but now, because of being able to reuse a lot of our materials like the pipes and the plumbings and everything, we've tried to standardize things as much as possible. And because we do a lot of vegetable crops throughout the year, this, it has been easier for us to have a standard system. So what is our standard spacing? We use a 1.5 meter spacing and then a 50 centimeter beds. This took a while, but we found that this is something that allows us to have enough ventilation between the crops, enough working space between the crops to come in and do all of our crop husbandry, as well as enough yields from our crops over the weeks and months that they're in the field. The beds themselves, as I said, are 50 centimeters, and within that we engineer and create a 30 centimeter wide spaced and 20 centimeter deep trench, which is called a fertility trench, and inside it we put in some compost. Now the aim of that compost is that it then feeds the crops. The final step in the bed preps is to create what's called a tabletop, which is now a flat surface that we can then lay down our plumbing, that's the drip tapes. And then we are ready for transplant. The final part of the establishment phase comes after the crop is transplanted, and then we are monitoring it for things like transplant shock. We are monitoring it for how it is growing. We are feeding it regularly with a lot of phosphorus in order to promote root establishment. We are watering it regularly as well. We don't water too much or too little. After a while, as farmers, you kind of learn to understand how, what, when, and where of some of these things. So after the establishment phase, we enter what we term the vegetative phase. Now this is where the crop grows, where it gives it some body and some weight as we get it ready for it to start bearing fruit. We've changed the way we feed it by now. So we've backed off from the phosphorus and we've gone into a lot of nitrogen, a little bit of potassium, and a lot of other micronutrients. We are protecting it from all of the baddies that want to come along and feast on it. We are also trying to prevent and deal with diseases that might come along as well.
Riverside 1 block D. So demantambushta mulching mu green paper.
If we do our job correctly, the plants start to grow and gain some volume. And this is the stage now where we start controlling the growth. Remember, we are heading towards getting it ready to start producing a lot of fruit for us. So we do several things, one of which is to encourage a thick main stem. After that, we have 3 stems, and then we do what's called side shoot pruning. And then we reach one of the most important phases of crop husbandry, one of the most important practices. Looking across this field here, we see these tree-looking things put in place there. I know this is not a forest that we came and accidentally planted our trees in. These are put here on purpose, and they're called trellising poles. The purpose of trellising is to be able to guide the crop as it grows. So we have these poles, which are medium height, and the system that we use here for our green pepper is to plant them at every 3 meter spacing. At the ends here, we have something that's a little bit more substantial because it's got to carry some weight. And then down here at the bottom, we put this bottom bracing down here. We then tie some string to it that then runs along the beds, and it is holding up the tree, the little bushes, the green pepper bushes, as they go along, and it prevents them from falling from side to side and helps to keep them upright. The plants then enter what we call the reproductive stage. As the name suggests, we start seeing the flowers, which, as everyone knows, are the reproductive organs of a plant, and then it starts fruiting. What is this now? This is a weed. It's such a heavy weed that we have here. Oh, the problem with weeds is they like to cut off at this stage in order to grow, and then it cuts off again. Oh, I haven't done a very good job of weeding. Over the years, I interact with people who are just getting into farming. We either engage online in 1 or 2 forums, or I meet them in person from time to time. And something that I realize quite often is that a lot of people have gotten into farming without actually understanding what is the main aim. What are we trying to do? So here at Mondo Farms, we are very, very specific about what we are trying to do. We are farming as a business. We came here to the outskirts of Chongwe in order to make some money from this land. In this particular case, we are growing a crop of green pepper, and we want something that will produce fruits like this consistently for several weeks and several months. So everything that we do here is for the purpose of achieving healthy crops of fruits that are profitable. Now, we've done our establishment, it's been vegetative, it has now entered its reproductive phase, and soon we get to the time when we start harvesting. Always a happy day.
Riverside 1, Block GEF, ndimo ntambo chita harvest ya green pepper. So kuli ino block E na F in second cut. First cut is now na last week. So this week in second cut. satire kuno ku storeroom kwantisuka green paper bantilonga mu crates.
So once we're in this phase, now here where it gets a little bit repetitive, but for a very good cause. So here at Mondo Farms, we do a system of harvesting usually once a week, usually on Sundays like today, or on Mondays in some cases, depending on the requests or demands of our off-taker. And then after the harvest, we continue to look after the crop. We do some disease prevention. We do some insecticide destruction, if I can use that term. And of course, we keep on feeding the crop, as well as weeding, pruning of side shoots and suckers. Everything continues for several weeks and weeks. Nkala experience na maskills yanu msungidwe na mukulizo yama crops yachinja kuchira kudana. Waona te? Nimeona ma video sometimes in 2021 awa niseka ati twali hangala. Here at Mondo Farms, we do what might be termed as frontline farming. We're part of the food chain, and we are the first place where the food, the fruits, the vegetables and grains are actually produced. They go to traders, they go to retailers, and people will finally eventually end up buying them and putting them on their plates. But we here, places like this, is where things actually start. So when you're on the front line, one of the things that happens is you've got to deal with all of the incoming. If it was the military, we'd be dealing with bullets, shells, mortars, etc. And one of the things that really affects farmers is the weather. So back in the day, we'd be watching the news at 19 hours on ZNBC for a little bit of brief news bulletin. But nowadays it's 2020 something, and we have very comprehensive news bulletins that are given out by our local Zambia Meteorological Department. Now, we get our weather news on the phone, usually through our WhatsApp groups where people share, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. The people that subscribe. There's a guy called Dingibanda that is a major part of my life, who I love very much when it comes to keeping us all abreast on our WhatsApp groups with the weather bulletins. Thank you very much, Dingi. Well, we don't always like him because sometimes, being people, we can shoot the messenger, So every once in a while, he'll send out a bulletin saying, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. So in mid-December, we were expecting him to tell us that, no, the rains are starting, look out for afternoon showers, thunderstorms, even a cyclone we don't mind at this stage. But instead, what we got was a weather bulletin, very, very pronounced, warning about a massive heat wave that was coming. And with that heat wave came excessive sunlight. Now, farmers like us, we're supposed to like sunlight, aren't we? After all, we need it for photosynthesis for our crops to grow. But the levels of sun that we were getting were what can only be described as brutal. We started to have severe problems with our crops, and they developed a very, very, very bad case of something called sun scald.
Riverside 1 broke DEF. So them want scouting my green peppers. So if you have maninga pa temperature my days are ili high maningi so pa ni tutenga update hapa. Ipa 36 degrees. So ikala kuna challenge na hivyo so hapa kuti utenge update mzuri hapa. Pesa ka phone cutting. So yapezeka shita affect fruit na kulima fruits yatu sun scout ya cha maningi ma fruits pezeka mbili yapya. So yonse sun scout yenze bwino kuseni but fika hapa zuwa yapezeka na hivyo shita affect fruit. So inde challenge ntanka kuna ma green peppers. So yonse yapezeka ndipa ni yacho katabe akaribia nkala matuadi sun scout heavy main.
Sun scald is a major problem for farmers growing crops out in the open field. It affects most fruits. A couple of months ago, we visited a banana plantation in Lower Zambezi, only to learn that even they too suffer from sun scald. Now, what is sun scald? It is basically excessive sun causing a sunburn injury on the skins of the fruits. When that injury then happens, the thing becomes weak and infections and even insects can enter in there. It is almost impossible to rescue a sun scald damaged fruits. And during that time of that heat wave, we started to notice incredible challenges happening here at Riverside 1, blocks D, E, and F.
So ndi sun scout ya timenya maningi kuno kuma green peppers.
So as you've seen there, the sun scald was hitting us hard. How do you deal with sun scald? The first thing you can do is not to grow your crops in the open field. You grow them in a protected environment like a shade house, like the ones we have now at Kimberley, or a greenhouse. But this is a green pepper crop that is being grown in the open field, and let's be honest, will almost always be grown in the open field. Protected environments are quite an investment, and here at Mondo Farms, we are not there yet. We have realized that as time goes on and we get more and more extreme weather events, we will have to increase the size and scope and extent of the protected environments that we're able to grow our crops under. I've seen it in a lot of videos from Botswana, where I know because of the whole Kalahari thing, you know, they really have upped their game in terms of protected environments. That is one of our future projects. But here we are with the green pepper that's being grown in the open field. The particular problem that we were having was that as the fruits are harvested, the crop is then growing and it's going upwards, and a lot of the flower and fruit formation happens at the top of the plant and where we had little to no vegetative cover. We had spent weeks and weeks feeding these particular crops with the phosphorus fertilizers in order for them to be producing a lot of fruits. Farming in the real world means always constantly having to deal with one sort of challenge or another. How do you deal with problems? The first thing you do is keep calm. Yes, you will have that emotional feeling of, oh no, what is happening, my Owandi, and all of that. And then you've got to say, well, here we are. What are we going to do now? And then you rely on your experience, you do some consultations, maybe with agronomists and other experts, and then you start swinging into action. The Mondo Farms team did a couple of things. Let's start with all of those sun-scald damaged fruits. We had to get them off the plant. First of all, they are sitting on our crops, on our plants. They are growing. The plant is expending energy and input and resources into them, all for nothing because we can't really sell them. Secondly, once we get rid of them, the plant being an organism plant that's in reproductive phase, will replace them with new fruits. So what we had to do was sending the team to go in and do what we call a hard prune and remove all of those damaged fruits. That took quite a while. A quick word on what we did with those damaged fruits, and we had quite a lot of them, as you saw. What we did was take them to our composting place, the place where we do our composting, and we use them in order to compost. Farmers everywhere in the world always have to make the best of a bad situation.
Saba pestry atayamba na ma green papers vante kutosa vanhu vinachawa na sun scout. So after ndivantambia kufaka layer first inkis na leaves.
Meanwhile, back at the Riverside 1 DEF, our team needed to do another very important action. First of all, I don't have to say, do I, that one of the most important things they needed to do during this time of excessive sunlight was to keep the plants hydrated. So we upped our game in terms of watering, keep giving them more and more constant water so that the plant is as strong as possible. And the other thing that was very important that they had to do was to change the scenario in terms of vegetative cover. Up to this point, I mentioned earlier, we had been giving it the potassium boron-rich flower and fruit fertilizers in order to encourage reproductive growth. And this was very, very, very successful. But now facing the challenge of this harsh sunlight, we then had to change and encourage the plants to grow more leaves. So we changed up our fertilizer from the flower and fruit. We went back in time and went back to the vegetative, something we had actually done when it came to trying to recover the frost-damaged green pepper crop on Dubai 1 a few months earlier during the winter. Problems like this are not easy to solve, and they require quite a lot of effort, a lot of kulimba ukukosa, to say, yes, we are going through hell. And as the old saying goes, when you are in that position, all you can do is keep going through it. We continued watering the crop and we continued encouraging the vegetative growth until we saw our foliage starts to form and the fruits became more and more bushy. And then we started noticing that even as the flowers continued to be formed, they were now being covered by the fruit, by the leaves, sorry. It took about 3 weeks or so before we found ourselves in a position to start going back to harvesting again. Just as I said, the weather can be a challenge, it can also be a bountiful thing, because towards Christmas time, the weather changed. The rains that we had been waiting for finally came, and it started raining almost every day, at certain times, every other day or so. The temperatures became much cooler, and when that happens, the plants even became even more healthy than what they were. And things have worked out for us. They worked out to that stage that we had such good crop health that, first of all, we had too much weeds and we had to send the team in there slashing. But what we were very pleased about was that with all of these ideal conditions, the fruits became very healthy again and they started fruiting heavily. Yes, we went back to the potassium-rich and boron-rich flower and fruit fertilizers once we had the good vegetative growth and good top cover. Again, what they might term the sun leaves. And then we started seeing better and better harvests. Things reached a stage that we were able, on the 9th of January, to record one of our biggest ever green pepper harvests, over 1/2 ton.
Tuli pano pa Riverside 1 storeroom. Pantambo grading green pepper. Set na first grade A na grade B. So in the first quality grade A, then in grade B, or sizes yaka ina yangono shape is na grade A and grade D.
So the Riverside 1 DAF crop continues. It's still giving us good harvest like what you saw at the very beginning of this video. We can still see quite a bit of sun scald as the sun. This is summer after all. The crop is a bit aged and things are not 100% healthy. And we are seeing some cases of some disease here and there. So it is winding down, but it's something that has given us that chirachi morale. We went through some tough times and we've come out on the other side. Farming in the real world, farming during the rainy season, one of the things we always have to deal with is weed pressure. I think weed pressure is just a nice way of saying that the weeds go wild, like this one way here. I remember years ago, we had struggled to uproot a one way, but I've been doing some gym and I can now manage. So the team was in here the other day and they were weeding through blocks D, E, and they reached up here, and now they shall continue with this one tomorrow morning. But even as we do that, one of the things we have to bear in mind is that we are now reaching late January, and by February, we always expect Riverside 1, Block F especially, to flood. We're farming on a floodplain. We did a video of this a couple of years ago when we talked about the rich, nutritious soils that we get here on the floodplain, and that farmers will almost always take a risk and farm on places like this one. We've got a succession crop that's already growing. at Kimberley, so our cash flow should be safe and secure within reason. We got a weather update the other day, another one of those dreaded bulletins that said, be careful, flash flood warning, it is coming. And when you see those ones, this place here at Riverside 1, Block F especially, is where you expect it to go. So very soon, Tyson's going to have to send the team in here to come in and remove the plumbing, remove these stakes that we use for our trellising, because of course we reuse them in another crop, and then we focus our minds on the next succession cropping and wait for the flood water to come in and go out once again. Farming throughout the year always has its ups and downs, but as you've seen on this video, we're able to meet challenges and come through on the other side and continue keeping our farming enterprise going. Another thing that we always want to keep going is the Mondo Farms YouTube channel. We started it back in 2021, and what we do is share stories from our farming, the things we do, why we do them, and how we do them. It's the place that shows farming in the local context here in Africa. It might not be relevant for people in some of the Western countries, and we do face challenges sometimes from comments from people saying, well, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't want to get into it, but it can be challenging. This channel is targeted at the African, Zambian, Southern African emerging farmer, trying to share our story in the hopes of helping to improve food production for our countries and for our continent. If you liked what you are seeing and you haven't yet subscribed to the video, then the easiest way for you to keep watching more and more of our videos is for you to press the subscribe button. And if you press the bell icon, then YouTube will let you know when another video comes along. My promise for 2025 is to try and be a little bit more consistent than we were last year. Mind you, I think I always say this at this time of year. If you like this video and you have someone else in mind that should be able to see it, maybe you want to share it on your WhatsApp group or via Facebook to some of your farming friends or business partners in your venture, then press the share button and forward it to them. It might be someone like your farm supervisor, farm manager at your place, and you want to show them one or two things about how Mondo Farms is doing things. If you really like the video and you want to show YouTube and us as well your sign of appreciation, then please press the thumbs up button that you see. By the way, a Bemba man saying the words R and L's, it can be challenging, but over the years, I think I'm getting past that one. If you have any comments you want to make to us, sharing some of your particular experiences with growing green pepper and similar crops in the open field during times of extreme weather, then please put it in the comments below. My name is Chisha Folotia. Always a pleasure to share our farming journey with you here on the Mondo Farms channel. Shale nipo. Bye-bye.